Hi everyone, so welcome. So this is my coach's thoughts on the Old Ghost Road. So this is part two of the race, and so we're going to talk about from the back half of the race. So from Stern Valley, which is the halfway point, we pick up your special needs, basically up to Ghost Lake, then across to Lyle Saddle, and then down to the finish. So the cold harsh reality is when you come out of Stern Valley, you've got about a kilometre of loveliness, and then it's up, and it's up for a long time. I think it's about a 13-kilometre climb. It's something like that, and it is just endless, and so you need to be prepared for that. As I said in the other part, I was having problems with my heart rate all day, so I was kind of just really limited, and so I just had my poles out, and I was just doing the best I could in the day, and my plan was kind of gone out the window, so I was in survival mode. But you are climbing for a long time, and then you kind of come out and up onto Skyline. Does seem to take forever to get up there. Parts of it are probably joggable on the way up. And I think if you're in better shape than I was, there's time to be ahead on that section. And as I said, I used my poles, and that was to keep my body more upright and be less fatiguing. And once you get up onto the Skyline Ridge, the poles came into their own. It's quite steep up there. It's like little zigzaggings, and the interesting thing about Skyline is the views are spectacular. We had a fantastic day. It was just stunning vistas everywhere you looked up there. It was quite spectacular, but also quite heartbreaking, because you're on Skyline and you can see people zigzagging up in front of you. But then over there in the distance, you can see Ghost Lake Hut, and it's like you're here and it's way over there, and you realize that you got to go, and then you can see the track way in the distance where it zigzags up, and it's like there's a little bit there. I kid you not, it is soul destroying. And again, like the top part of Skyline, it's this narrow little zigzaggy, you're just working your way up like that, but my god, it's spectacular. And then you kind of drop down, and then there's another grovel up before a little plateau before you get up to the Ghost Lake Hut. I think for me, that section was just survival, and I think that's probably the case for most people. What I found interesting that and I'll do a coach's thoughts on things I would do different. But one of the interesting things is that if you can be a strong tramper, and kind of walk strong and fast, you'll lose a little bit of you lose less time. And I say that because there were people who were just walking faster than I could, and it was it's quite heartbreaking if I'm honest. But I was there to complete. Let's be fair here. This was my first ever ultra marathon, and I obviously picked a hard one. And it's I kind of, my thoughts were that if I wanted to do well at this, I would need at least another year of running, and having done the race now, maybe 2 years of running under my belt. But the climb up to Ghost Lake Hut is that's the heartbreaking part of the course, and but it is majestic as well. And the thoughts when you're going up through there are like, they cut this track through here. You know what I mean? The amount of work that the team that did to create this track that we get to play on, whether you're tramping it or biking it or being a crazy bugger like we were and running it, it's just there are thoughts of like, wow, just incredible. So enjoy that. That would be my advice on there. Because the cool thing is, when you get to Ghost Lake Hut, psychologically, you're pretty much at the top. There's still a little bit of climbing, another 2 or 3 Ks, maybe 4 Ks, maybe 5 of climbing before Lyle Saddle and you start dropping down. But by Ghost Lake Hut, you've broken the back of it. So psychologically, you just know you can kind of get home from there, barring major dramas. That's where I started on coke. And like I got into there, I was like a ruined man. My daughter was watching the live feed. She says I came in, sat down in the background, and just was like a stunned mullet. And then the helpers were getting me the stuff I needed, and then it was like, right, let's just get it done. And but that's a really good hut to get to. It's kind of like you have broken the back of it. There is a bit of a climb up onto the ridge line to head across to Lyall Saddle, and I lost quite a bit of time through this next section. And the reason I lost quite a bit of time is that I'm terrible on really, really rocky trails. And like it was a big rocky granite kind of trail, and it was a gentle uphill. It was probably runnable, but by this point I'd lost all mobility in my hips, and dexterity was gone as well. That was out the window. But I'm not very good at that kind of running at the best of times. And my God, I think if you could run over that type of terrain, there'd be a massive amount of time to make up. Whereas for me, I was just leeching time. And got across the top, and I was in a whole world of hurt, and started to head down toward Lyall Hut, and a young woman went past me, and checked. That's the thing, everybody checks how you're doing. If you pass somebody, it's like, you good, do you need it, if somebody looks like they're struggling, it's like, do you need anything? Because I had a few moments of that when I was passing some people as well. And so the culture's really cool. And she shouted back, because I says, I'm struggling, and she shouted back, if you've got Panadol, take it, you'll be a new man in 30 minutes. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I have. And like, this is the thing. It's like, I know that Panadol, like endurance athletes take Panadol, and a lot of them do an Ironman. I've never had to, usually because by the time it starts hurting, I'm close enough to home that I can gut it out. If I was doing this race again, I would have taken, and if I was doing this race again, I'd take some Panadol at Ghost Lake Hut. I would wait till there, and that would give me enough to take the edge off to get me through, and so I can run down the descent. So a couple of things happened. So I stopped and took Panadol, and oh God, my hip flexors were cramping trying to bend down and get it, put my pack down because it was stowed, and trying to get at it and trying to kneel down. It was just cramp city. I was like a broken man. But then for the next section to the Lyall Saddle Hut, a couple of things happened. A, the Panadol kicked in a little bit, and B, it became more terrain that I could run on. Because that's the thing, like I'm new to this. I'm not a very good trail runner. It's a whole new learning experience. I've got tiny little feet with little glass ankles, so I'm not going to be and I'm not the most dexterous person in the world. So, but my legs started coming good with the Panadol settling in, and the train being kind of a groom trail that I could run on, and I actually started moving with a little bit of progress. Got to the Lyall Saddle, and I was trying to, and then you do, in all of the stuff you do math as to how fast I'm going, how many Ks has it got, and with the old Ghost Road there's kilometre markers, and some of those kilometre markers take a long time to get to. But fueled up at that hut, and then I was in a really good rhythm all the way down. I think from there to the finish I averaged 6:22 per K pace, so I was pretty happy with that considering the day I'd had. And I actually started going slightly forward past quite a few people on that descent, which was heartening. I think that if I hadn't had the really, really high heart rate earlier in the day, I would have probably been half an hour to 40 minutes further ahead of where I was. The rest of the time that I lost, honestly, it's just that I'm crap at trail running. That's the like running across the rocky stuff. I'm just hopeless. And the first part of this descent on the Lyall Saddle is quite stony and rocky, and if I'm going to do this race, I need to work out how to do that better. But the run down to Lyall Saddle it does, it takes a while still. And the cool thing is you're just counting down the kilometre markers to the finish. But it's a really lovely groomed trail. And I got to, I was working out time, and I got to about 4 Ks to go, and I knew I was going to be well under the 12-hour mark, because earlier in the day I was thinking this is going to be a 13-hour day. And the last 4Ks, when I knew I was going to be sort of 11:30ish, somewhere 11:30, 11:40, somewhere in there, I kind of just eased up and actually just enjoyed myself as much as you can when your legs are screaming at you. Got across the bridge and I had a little check behind me, and there was a guy just coming onto the bridge, because it was like there's no way I wanted a sprint finish with anybody at the end of that kind of race. But it meant that like I couldn't hang around groveling up the steps into the finish. It was like one of those, got it done, and oh god, that destroyed me. I mean, let's be honest, that course is brutal. It's achievable, but be under no illusion, it is a brutal day out. And but it is also just so spectacular. The organisation is fantastic, and the crew that, you know, from race briefing to the prize giving to all the helpers on the aid stations, it's just a glorious day. And you know, the athletes themselves are also a great bunch of people. So looking at it objectively, I think there's a couple of things. Is that, you know, you need to be mindful of the first bit in the dark. The climb up to Boneyard, people don't talk about how tough that is. Well, it's not tough, but it's just relentless. The climb up to Ghost Lake is both brutal, spectacular, and heartbreaking all at the same time. And then once you get to Ghost Lake, honestly, I know I'm repeating myself, but honestly, you're kind of home and hose from there. And you just got to get across the ridge, and then it's downhill all the way. So, you know, a really cool day. I do think it's achievable, but you can't enter it with thinking it'll be easy. And, you know, it was a lot harder than I was expecting it to be. You know, I was expecting the climb up to Ghost Lake to be similar to the climb from Lyle up, because I'd run up to the Lyle Saddle from the car park. I'd run the back end. They are completely different climbs. You know, I think if you could tramp it in the build-up, it would be definitely beneficial, just and tramp it the way that you would go in the race. But I also think that it's a case of you need to be really get really good at sort of tramping uphill with poles. You know, you can choose not to use poles. I just think it would set you up better for later in the day by using them. And the other thing is get comfortable being fatigued and running over rocky terrain. So that's it. What a fantastic event. As I said, my day didn't quite go to plan, but I got to the finish, and I'm super happy with that. And I hope these have been helpful. As I said, the one thing I would just say is that first hour is, if you can get through that without rolling your ankle or to the first heart, you're probably on your way to getting through. So that's it. That's the Old Ghost Road. I will do another little video based on I'll talk a little bit about my training and what I think I would do differently if I'm going to do this again. And I need to let my feet heal before I do that, because they're destroyed. It's one of those things. It's my first one, and I've got to need a bit of time to process. But yeah, I think I'd quite like to do it at some stage. I'm just not too sure when, and it's also dependent on my lovely long-suffering wife as well, for her buy-in. So anyway, that's enough from me, and I will speak to you in the last video. See you later. Bye-bye.